Shalonda's Short Stories, written by Shalonda Reese. Story number 9, The Hike. George, Melissa, and Beth were college students on summer vacation. They were good friends and sometimes would spend their free time hiking together. George and Melissa grew up together as neighbors, and Beth joined their friendship circle during the third year of high school. It was the first Saturday of summer vacation. They all stood in front of a sign that read, Dogwood Rapids. They had never hiked there before, but they had heard the stories of people getting lost, strange things happening, and search crews searching the area for missing persons, only to find no one. Guys, are we sure about this? Melissa asked, a little nervous. Unless we drove here for nothing, yes, we are sure, George answered promptly. Don't be nervous, Melissa, Beth said. We will stick together. Dogwood Rapids was a dangerous hike with many cliffs, narrow edges, and steep hills. The visitors were warned to hike at their own risk due to the many unfortunate incidents that took place. Melissa and Beth went to the restroom. George stood around and scoped out the area. Even though he was a bit uneasy about hiking in Dogwood Rapids, he kept quiet. He didn't want to seem like a coward, especially not in front of Beth. As Melissa and Beth emerged from the restroom, he could not help feeling butterflies in his stomach each time he saw Beth. She had that effect on him. He and Melissa had been friends for many years, but he never saw her as anything other than a friend. But with Beth, he could visualize her being his wife. He wondered how Melissa would feel about his affection for Beth, especially since Melissa confessed romantic feelings for him on their senior prom night. He politely rejected her, yet they remained friends. Ready? George asked excitedly. Yes, let's do it, Beth laughed. They trudged up the trail. According to the sign, the trail had 3 routes that were about 5 miles each. After about an hour of hiking, they stopped to catch their breath and to take a break. Strange, Beth said. No one else is in sight. Especially for a Saturday morning, Melissa added. They are probably on a different trail, George suggested, even though he found it disturbing too. They continued on the trail. They come to a point on the trail that is extremely narrow. Guys, we have to walk in a single file carefully. What? Are you crazy? We could fall off, Melissa shrieked. Yes, we could, Beth said matter-of-factly. We were anticipating this type of fun. Here it is. I'll go first, George said. Melissa should be in the middle and Beth at the end. Melissa didn't want to ruin the fun in the group, so she fearfully and cautiously followed George as Beth followed her. They all walked quietly on the trail in a single file. They were extremely silent, carefully watching where they laid their feet on the path. One false move or misstep could leave one of them or all of them in danger. You guys okay? George asked. I guess, Melissa replied. Beth? George asked. Yes, I'm fine. Good. Keep your eyes on the ground and just watch your step. The sound of feet stepping on rocks and sticks filled the air. After about 5 more minutes, they were back on the safer part of the trail. Thank God, Melissa sighed, relieved. That was a doozy, Beth said, a little frazzled herself. Suddenly, they heard a sound that caused them to freeze. What was that? That sounded like a bear, George said as he looked around. I did not come out here to get eaten, Melissa cried. We won't get eaten, Melissa, Beth said unconvincingly. Didn't you read somewhere on that brochure that there are bears? Melissa asked. Melissa, any height can be dangerous, George argued. We all knew the dangers before committing to this. I am ready to uncommit. At this point, George was getting tired of having Melissa around. He really wished it was just he and Beth. Let's just walk carefully. Be aware. Remember, play dead if you come in contact with the bear. His roar sounded afar off. How far have we hiked? Melissa asked. This is the halfway mark, Beth replied. They trailed on, and after a while it started to get dark. Guys, we haven't come in contact with anyone else. Melissa, this is our first time. Maybe some people were on a different trail. Does anyone else have service on their phones? George asked, checking his phone. No service for me. I don't have any either, Beth replied. Me neither, Melissa added. It's getting dark. We should eat something. They all sat down on the grass and opened their backpacks. They ate sandwiches, fruit bars, and chips in silence. There had never been this much tension among them. I think this place is cursed, Melissa said. Why would you say that? Just a feeling. Let's just hurry up and get out of here. They finished eating and continued on the trail. At this point, it was completely dark. George put out his flashlight and continued to lead the way. I don't think we're supposed to be out here after dark. I saw a sign that said that the trail closes at 6. It's a little past 6. We will be fine if we just stay the path until we get to the end, George said. Rain started to fall. This cannot be happening. This is the worst day of my life. Thunder roared in the sky as the rain came down hard. Just follow me. Melissa and Beth followed George. Over here, to that tree. Melissa and Beth could not see George, but they rushed to the tree where they found some relief. Where is George? Beth asked after a moment. Melissa looked around. George was nowhere in sight. I don't see him. George! Beth called out. George! Melissa echoed. As they called out George's name, the rain lightened up. Let's find him. I think we are lost, Beth said, looking around. There are 2 trails. One goes this way and the other that way. We are not splitting up, Melissa said. Help! That was George. Help! Where are you, George? The bear roared. No, we have to find him. Let's try this path. Melissa and Beth ran down the path. George! Help! George, we're coming! They stopped running as soon as they saw George lying on the ground. George? Melissa said. They both walked over to George, who was lying on the ground with his eyes closed. They looked around and saw no one. They shook George. George opened his eyes and looked at them. What happened? You were yelling help, and we followed the sound of your voice. George looked at them very strangely. I don't remember yelling help. You don't remember? You said it several times, Beth said. The only thing I remember is falling and hitting my head and a bear roaring over me. I fell to the ground and saw this huge man with a sword standing between me and the bear. What did he look like? Beth asked. He was huge, maybe 8 feet tall, very muscular. I just saw a glimpse of him before I lost consciousness. I do remember feeling safe, though." "Wow!" Melissa exclaimed. "George, an angel protected you," Beth said. George sat up. "I believe it. The bear was slobbering over me like it was ready to eat me." Beth took a tissue from her pocket and cleaned the small amount of blood from the gash where George fell. "Is this the first time something like this ever happened to you?" Beth asked. Yes, but my grandma has stories for days about her encounters with angels and how they protected her in her most vulnerable situations." "I do feel comfort and peace, unlike when we first started," Melissa said softly. "Let's get out of here, guys. I don't want to hang around for that bear to show up again." They continued to follow the path. After about an hour, they were at the entrance of the park where they started. "What an adventure!" George tried to laugh it off. George and Melissa stopped walking and realized Beth was tagging along in the back. They turned around and saw her kneel down and fold her hands in the prayer position. "Thank you, Lord, for sending that angel to protect George and to guide us out of here." George smiled to himself. As they drove off, George stopped the car in the middle of the road. "What's wrong?" Melissa asked, worried. "Make sure you don't look back," George warned them. Melissa and Beth quickly glanced at each other. They wanted to ask why, but intuitively knew that they should listen and not ask. "This deep feeling just came over me that we should not look back and not ever come back here again. Got it?" "Yes," Beth said. "I got it," Melissa said. George pressed the accelerator as the car cruised off, and no one looked back.